السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. So you can begin.
جي إن شاء الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم نوّر قلوبنا بمعرفتك واشرح صدورنا بنور كتابك وسنة نبيك واحفظنا عن زلل وخطأ في بيان مرادك. آمين. So we were busy discussing the chapter on the fact that أحكام الشريعة تتعلق بأسبابها. All the laws of Sharia are connected with asbab, whether it be the illat or the sabab. And then he went on to explain, and we explained the reason why. Why do we have to look for a sabab and an illat? It is so that we can come to know when the law of Allah Ta'ala is applicable to us, in what time, at what juncture are we expected to apply and execute that command of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Then he said that with regards to that, there are different asbab for different amals. We were talking about salah first. That salah, the sabab for it is the time. So we will look at both the status of the servant in that particular time and the status of the time itself. And he said there's two ways of calculating how this works. One way is that every moment, as soon as the time comes in for the salah, for example, every moment becomes a sabab of the salah. So if the person is in the second minute, in the minute before that, that is a sabab for him to carry out the action of salah. Okay, so that is a sababul. The sabab wujub is a hukm of Allah Ta'ala, and sabab wujub is a time, and nafsul wujub is the command of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. That's the one way of counting it. So he says because that is the one way of counting it, so the last minute will be then the command will become established on the last minute. So in that particular time, what is the status of the person who has been charged with carrying out his duty? If he or she is a musafir in that last minute, then they will perform qasr salah irrespective of what the status was prior to that. And vice versa, if they were muqim, for example, then they don't have to perform qasr. They won't have to perform they can't perform qasr. They have to perform the full salah. And similarly, if a woman got a haid in the last moment, even though she was tahira before that, and then because the salah became compulsory upon her at the last moment, in that state, she will not be eligible to perform the salah, and vice versa. Right. So that was as far as the person is concerned. Now, what about the time itself? Right. وبيان اعتبار صفة ذلك الجزء أن ذلك الجزء إن كان كاملا. And the explanation of taking into consideration the quality of that particular moment itself, not the person. But if that particular moment, that minute, in kana kamil, if it was a juz'ul kamil, meaning that that particular moment in time is a complete time, it's not a makruh time, not a haram time, for that person to perform salah in. Then taqarrat al-wadhifatu kamilatan. And then whatever the job description is, whatever the duty is at that particular moment, also needs to be completed in a perfect and complete manner. فلا يخرج عن العهدة بأدائها في الأوقات المكروهة. So therefore he will not be absolved from his duty, his responsibility, by executing that particular action in the makruh time, because the makruh time is not come to qasir. We did this before, waqtul kamil, waqtul qasir. So if that particular action became compulsory upon him in a complete manner, the time itself was kamil, then he cannot carry out that duty in a waqtul qasir. For example, in Masjid Fajr Salah, right? So the entire Fajr Salah time, from the time the Salah starts till sunrise, is a waqtul kamil. You can't now read the Salah, Fajr Salah in the sunrise or at the time of Zawal, for example, because those are makruh times. And makruh times, waqtul qas is deficient. It's not a perfect and complete time. ومثاله فيما يقال, an example, uh, an example in what has been said, as far as what has been said, إن آخر وقت في الفجر كامل, that the last moment of the Fajr Salah is a waqtul kamil, perfect time, complete time. وإنما يصير الوقت فاسدا بطلوع الشمس, and the time only becomes invalid, meaning that you can't perform the Fajr Salah by the rising of the sun. That's waqtul fasid or waqtul qasir. وذلك بعد خروج الوقت, and that only occurs after the time of Fajr has expired. فيتقرر الواجب بوصف الكمال. So therefore, if the person did not perform the Fajr Salah even at the last moment, then that particular wajib, that particular compulsory duty has become established with a complete quality, with a complete, in a complete manner. So now you can only make the qada of it in a complete manner. فإذا طلعت الشمس في أثناء الصلاة بطل الفرض. So if the person was to start salah towards the end time, but he only completes the salah when the sun rises. And so let's say if sun rises, for example, at 5:58, he started at 5:45, and he read a long salah, or 5:56, at 2 minutes before sunrise. And he only completed it at 6 o'clock, after sunrise. Batal al-fard. So then the fard salah will become invalid. Right? Because even though you started it in a complete time, it was not completed in a complete time, it was completed in a fasid time, in a time which is invalid, which goes contrary to how the duty was supposed to have been executed. لأنه لا يمكنه إتمام الصلاة إلا بوصف النقصان, because it's not possible for him to complete his salah except in a manner that is deficient. باعتبار وقت, take into consideration the time at the time that he completed the salah in. Okay, understood?
Sure.
ولو كان ذلك جزء ناقصا. However, if the time that he started the salah in was already deficient, كما في صلاة, as happens in the time of Asr. As you know, Asr salah time, it becomes makruh and isfirar shams sets in. So the time from the doubling of shadow until sunset is the time of Asr. However, not the entire time is waqtul kamil. Once the sun starts becoming yellow, it loses its brightness. It's about 20-25 minutes before Maghrib. Then that is the makruh time to read Asr Salah. Okay? So if he was to start the Salah in that makruh time and he completes it in the makruh time, that will be fine, because he completed his duty as he started his duty. فإن آخر وقت إحمرار الشمس, because the final time of Asr Salah is at the time that the sun starts becoming reddish, like a reddish color. والوقت عنده فاسد, and the time at that particular time is fasid, meaning makruh. فتتقرر وظيفته بصفة مساعد. So if you was reading Salah at that time, makruh time, then the duty becomes established or becomes set in with a deficiency in it. Understand? ولهذا وجب القول بالجواز عنده مع فساد الوقت. And it's for this reason that it is compulsory to say then, necessary to say then, the salah will be permissible at that time, despite the fact that it is a deficient time and makruh time. Okay? Because he
Sure.
began the salah in that time, so it will be permissible for him to finish it in that time.
But
Got that?
he won't be able to start in a non-makruh time and then finish in a makruh time.
No,
Sure.
he won't be allowed to do that. He must end it like how he started.
Sure.
Okay, so that was the first method of calculating, where we take every minute to be a sabab, and then as that minute expires, the next one becomes a sabab, and so on and so forth, till the end of time. وطريق الثاني, the second method of doing it, of saying of calculating or establishing which is the with regards to time and salah is أن يجعل كل جزء من أجزاء الوقت سببا لا على طريق الانتقال. That we say that every part, every moment of the time is a sabab, but not by transferring it from moment to moment, right? But the entire time itself, every minute by itself is a sabab, and said individually. There's no transference from one minute to the next minute, like the first method. فإن القول به قول بإبطال السببية الثابت بشرع. Why? Because if we adopt the first method, it is possible to say that by transferring the sabab from the first minute to the next minute, from the next minute to the third minute, and so forth, you are then making the first minute or the minute before it batil, invalid. Whereas that you doing it by yourself, with the Sharia has considered that first moment to be a valid moment of active duty. So you are invalidating something the Sharia has done, or the Sharia has established, which is not correct. So to avoid that, we rather say every moment on its own is a sabab. Understand? So if you didn't make it in the first moment, then the next moment will stand on its own as a sabab, without transferring it from minute to minute to minute to minute. ولا يلزم على هذا تضاعف الواجب. And the second thing that we can avoid is that it will not be necessitated by this how can you say, a multiplicity of duties. You say every sabab is a every time the moment moves on, it becomes a new sabab. That means every time it moves to the next minute, you have to redo the salah. So you have to perform the salah, for example, how many times? And the person could argue that, theoretically speaking, if every moment is a new sabab, then every sabab demands a new action. So you're going to have a multiplicity. You're going to have to do the action multiple times. So to avoid that possible objection, we can the second method he's saying is better. Okay. فإن الجزء الثاني إنما أثبت أينما ثبته الجزء الأول. Because by the second method, the second moment merely establishes what exactly the same thing the first moment established, nothing new. So if you completed your duty in the first moment, then your absolve is carried on, it's done. Because the second moment, if every moment after that, after you completed your duty, it merely establishes or um, re-establishes what the first moment already established. So once you completed your duty, it's done. You don't have to redo it. You don't have to redo it. فكان هذا من باب ترادف العلل. So this will be like you are having a what you call ترادف synonymous ilal, and all the ilal are the same. Understand? Because sometimes an action can have multiple asbab for one action, not many actions, but one action can have multiple asbab, can have multiple illats. So in the same way here, the entire time is illat. So depending on where you perform it, it will be discounted off it. And the other illats won't count any longer because you've done your duty. For example, كثرة الشهود في باب الخصومة, or like you have multiple witnesses in a court case. It doesn't matter whether you have the Shari'i stipulation, which is 2 witnesses, or you have 100 witnesses giving witness to the same thing, comes to the same thing. Only thing is that the 100 witnesses will strengthen the person's case, but it won't imply multiple liabilities. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
All 100, or whether it's 2 or whether it's 100, they're all giving mushara to one incident. In the same way, sometimes one action can have 2, 3 illness, but it's not telling you to do 2 or 3 actions. It's merely strengthening the same action. So that's what he's saying. That by counting it in the second way, that every moment is a sabab on its own individually, it's the same thing like that. That they're just merely fortifying, they're merely reinforcing what is compulsory upon you. That's all. Right, so that is as far as Salah is concerned. وسبب وجوب الصوم شهور الشهر. and the sabab, the illat for the fast becoming compulsory. Remember I told you last week that is going to discuss the ibadat mostly, because these sababs might be a bit obscure. These illat might be a bit obscure compared to the others. Right, now what is the sabab of fast becoming compulsory? Shuhudu shahr, to witness the month of Ramadan, meaning to be alive, aqil, baligh, and so forth at the time of Ramadan. When Ramadan starts, and that is the cause for Ramadan becoming compulsory upon a person. وهل يتوجه الخطاب إن شهود الشهر, because at the time of witnessing, meaning being present at the time of Ramadan, at that time the command of Allah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام, and so forth, becomes applicable to a person. وإضافة الصوم إليه, and the fast is then attached to that command of Allah Ta'ala in the Quran. Okay, so again, the nafsul wujub is ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum, the command from Allah Ta'ala, and the sababul wujub is the shuhud shahr, being a witness of the month, being present at the start of the month of Ramadan. Right. والسبب وجوب الزكاة ملك النصاب النامي حقيقة أو حكما, and the cause or the illah for zakat becoming wajib is to be in ownership of the threshold, the nisab of zakat, the threshold, which is a nami. It is such wealth that grows, whether in reality or whether hukman. So such wealth that grows in reality, meaning, for example, like a person has a farm, or a person has cows or animals, which give birth to young ones. So there you can see the growth. From one animal you have 2, 3, 4. From planting a few seeds, it grows into so many acres or hectares of crop. Okay, so whether it be in reality, you can see the growth reality hakikatan, or it grows hukman. For example, you've got gold and silver, and the price of the gold and silver is fluctuating. It was 500 rand for the amount of gold that you had, or 5,000 rand for the amount of gold that you had today. But in 3 months' time, the price of the gold has increased to 7,000, 10,000. Okay, so although the amount is still the same, the gold and silver quantity is still the same, but the value has increased. So that is hukman increase. Okay, understood?
Sure.
Similarly, if you have a house which you're not staying in, a house which you bought specifically to make money out of, either to rent or to resell, right? You're not staying in the house. If you're staying in the house, obviously there's no house and the money to just in the house to staying in. But you bought a house or a property specifically to resell or to make money out of via rent. So that also is hukman increase. That's also hukman nami. Okay, where you can see the incremental increase in the value of the property or the land that you are bought for that purpose. You follow?
Sure.
وباعتبار وجوب السبب جاز التعجيل في باب الأداء. Now, taking into consideration the wujub sabab, understand, which is that you have the ownership of the threshold, zakat threshold, which is able to grow. You can give the zakat quickly في باب الأداء. So although the shart is 1 year must pass, and if you want to, because the sabab wujub is there and present, and because you have the money now, and it's equal or more than the nisab, because of that, if you want to, you can give the zakat immediately. Why? Because the sabab wujub is present. You don't have to wait the entire year and see what the wealth is going to be at the end of the year. Okay?
Sure.
وسبب وجوب الحج البيت, and the sabab al-wujub of Hajj then is the Baytullah, the Haram. What is saying? لإضافته إلى البيت. Why is it the sabab? Because we say Hajjul Bayt. So normally that is an indication in fiqh that the action has been attributed to its sabab, the Hajj pilgrimage of the Baytullah. So this is إضافة عمل إضافة العمل or حكم إلى سببه. Okay, والله أعلم, that's what is being said. وعدم تكرار الوظيفة في العمر, and the fact that you don't have to redo the duty in your life. And Hajj only comes once in a lifetime. You don't have to repeat it a second, third, fourth time because it's only one Baytullah. Okay? So unlike Salah or Ramadan, if the sabab repeats itself, the Baytullah is only one. So once you have the money and you have the ability to go for the Hajj Baytullah, that's it. There's no Farad Hajj again after it. Yes, you can go for Nafil Hajj, but there's no repeat of your Farad Hajj. Once it's done, it's done. وعلى هذا, so based upon this, لو حج قبل وجوب الاستطاعة, if the person goes for Hajj before he had the full ability to do so, and which is your means and your transport, as somebody paid for him, whatever the case was, he was Baligh Aqil, somebody paid for him his way, he didn't have his own money, or the wife was paid for by the husband. So ينوب ذلك عن حجة الإسلام لوجود السبب, then that will count as a Hajjatul Islam. It will count as your Fard Hajj. Hajjul Islam meaning your Fard Hajj. It will count as your compulsory Hajj. لوجوب السبب, because the sabab is found, which is the Hajj Baytullah. You made Hajj of the Hajj Baytullah with all these other conditions. So therefore that will stand in place of your Fard Hajj. Okay? وبه فارق أداء الزكاة قبل وجوب النصاب لعدم السبب, and in this way it differs from paying your zakat before you have the nisab لعدم السبب, because the sabab doesn't exist. Zakat only becomes compulsory when you have the minimum nisab, the minimum threshold. If you don't have it and you're paying zakat, the zakat is not counted because it's not compulsory upon you. The sabab of compulsion is not there. So when the sabab is not there, your payment of zakat doesn't count. It can't count as zakat. This kind of the nafil sadaqah. Understood?
Okay.
Any questions so far?
No. Not at the moment.
Okay. Next thing. وسبب وجوب صدقة الفطر رأس يمون ويلي عليه. And the sabab of wujub or sadaqatul fitr, or zakatul fitr, which is going to be paid now in Ramadan, is ra'sun, a person, yamunuhu, whom you are taking care of, ويلي عليه, and responsible for. Ra'sun means head, but obviously it refers to a person. I've explained this before, I think. Sometimes the word head is used in English also to refer to the whole person. For example, there's a fundraising taking place, they're charging 20 rand per head. Or if going into a particular place for holiday, it's 500 rand per head. Understood? So head
Okay.
means per person. In the same way, yeah, Ra'sun, for every person that you are taking care of and responsible for, you have to pay sadaqatul fitr. So for example, yourself, for Nabalik children, if you have any workers that are Muslim that you are responsible for, and so on and so forth, then you have to pay sadaqatul fitr for yourself and for them as well. وباعتبار السبب يجوز تعجيل. And again, taking into consideration the sabab, it's permissible for you to give the sadaqatul fitr early meaning before Eid al-Fitr. You can pay your sadaqatul fitr for yourself and your minor children and so, or your major children also, if they haven't left the house and you are still responsible for them. حتى جاز أداء قبل يوم الفطر, to the extent that it is permissible to give the sadaqatul fitr prior to the Eid al-Fitr. Okay. You still there?
Moulana.
Okay.
Can Moulana just
وسبب
repeat
وجوب
it last
الأشر
line?
الأراضي
That would be باعتبار
yeah,
السبب.
so because of so taking into consideration the sabab, which is people that you're responsible for, it's permissible now for you to pay prior. It's permissible for you to pay prior to the time, and prior to the day of Eid al-Fitr. So you don't have, normally you're supposed to actually pay the Eid al-Fitr before you go for the Eid Salah, right? That's the last time you can pay, but well, not the last time, but that's the time to pay it. But because the sabab is present prior to that, you may give the sadaqatul fitr prior to that. And nowadays they ask for it prior because we're going to run around for you on Eid morning to go and give sadaqah al-fitr to poor people, you understand? So nowadays it is just generally taken for granted that your sadaqah al-fitr needs to be in before Eid morning. Okay?
Sure.
So the Imam is not going to run around for you on Eid morning giving sadaqah al-fitr to people. Or just by the way, since we are discussing that, in the Hanafi madhab, if you missed giving the sadaqah al-fitr, it doesn't fall away. You still have to give it even after Eid. You still have to pay it, eh? It doesn't fall away. It doesn't keep that in mind. The Hanafis. Because it's wajib according to us. Okay. وسبب وجوب العشر الأراضي النامية كحقيقة الري. And Ushar, what is Ushar? Ushar is zakat on crops, basically. And as the word suggests, Ushar means 1/10. You give 1/10 of certain crops, right? There are certain crops that you have to give zakat on. So it's called Ushar, right? It's like how you give zakat on wealth and you give zakat on animals, zakat on land produce as well. Certain types of produce, you have to pay zakat for it. So that's called Ushar, which is 1/10 of the crops. If it is watered naturally. If you are irrigating it yourself out of your own pocket, then it's less. Okay, I think 1/20 or something. But if it's being irrigated naturally, rainwater or river water, whatever, is what you're not paying any expense for the irrigation, and then it's 1/10. So they say arad namya, a land that is actually growing crops, not a dead land. It has the potential to grow, but you're not growing anything in it. Understand? So land or property where you're actually growing something that qualifies بحقيقة uh, together with actual irrigation. Rai means irrigation. Okay. So you are farming the land, irrigating the land, and you seem to then you're paying for all the compost and whatever else. Okay. So all those things that are fertilizing it and everything, all of that. So that is the sababul or wujub of Oshar. وسبب وجوب الخراج الأراضي الصالحة للزراعة. And for kharaj, there is a land that has the potential, صالحة, a land which has the potential to grow crops. So you're sitting with land that has the potential to grow crops. Even though you're not growing, you still have to pay on that land. Okay, but this is called kharaj. It's slightly different. The amounts you can consult with your kitab. Inshallah, we won't go into that now. Okay, so in that case, al-aradi الصالحة للزراعة, properties or land that has the potential to grow those crops that the Sharia charges zakat on. فَكَانَ نَامِيَةً حُكْمًا. So we will say that this is growth, حُكْمًا meaning potential. It has potential growth. Okay, so because it has potential growth to grow that particular type of crops, there's nothing wrong with it, just that you haven't used the land appropriately or properly. So even on that, you will then have to pay a kharaj tax, a kharaj zakat. Okay,
Sure.
this is normally on a non-Muslim person, a kharaj.
So that tax is only
No, sorry.
typically.
No, sorry, kharaj is also on a Muslim. I'm confusing myself. This is also on a Muslim as well, yeah.
But even if he's not growing it, but because it can grow, he has to pay.
Yeah, that is to try and encourage growth. Okay, the Sharia does that because if you got the land, why are you just leaving it there? If you don't want to use it yourself, give it to somebody to use. Hire it out to somebody to use and let them grow food, because food is always needed. Let them grow and then they pay the kharaj, you know what I'm saying? But don't let it just stand there going to waste, and the people need it in terms of food supply. That is to encourage the person to use it. If you got the land, use it. You don't use it, sell it or rent it and get it used, so it doesn't just lie and waste there. Follow?
Jima. And then Moulana, with regards to the Sadaqat al-Fitr, are you allowed to pay for a parent that you're taking care of?
Yes, you can. Again, yeah. You can pay for the wife also if she gives permission. You just ask for permission. Those that you don't have to pay for, if you want to, just take the permission. If you want to, out of your own goodwill, pay for them, just tell them, you say, "Nah, to give me permission to pay your sadaqah," and you pay for them, no problem. Be it the parent, be it your wife, be it your children, or even earning money. Some people like to do that. They say, like, I always paid for you since you were small. I still want to pay for you. So some parents do that. They just take permission from their growing, working children, and they still, till the end of days, they keep on paying. There's not a problem.
جزاك الله.
Okay, is it time up? Okay, time up. Inshallah, will continue tomorrow. Just a small piece, and that will be finished. Then we go on to I think it's the last piece, the mawani, those things that prevent the hukum from taking place, such as hayd and junoon and all those kind of things, if I'm not mistaken. Those things which the Sharia has allowed a person, for which the Sharia has, no, there is still a few more chapters after that. Okay,
إن
so let's
شاء
see,
الله.
we'll have a look at it after. Okay, take it, inshallah. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك